Hello, everyone. This is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology, how it affects your charts in particular, and also how it affects the world. Okay, for those of you who don't know about me, and you haven't been looking at this channel, I do have extensive background in Vedic astrology. I've been an astrologer for 32 years. I've held a certain number of pretty high profile positions in the Vedic astrology community, but you can read up about me if you look at an earlier video or if you go online. I don't have a link set up yet, so you can look at my biographical information, but I've been around for a while, and I do plan on doing some more chat sessions, with fellow astrologers who are well known in the community, so stay tuned for that on the YouTube channel. And also I do classes. I do one-on-one group classes, and also I do readings. So if you're interested in any of those things, please contact me at 508-525-0001. Again, that's 508-525-0001. And we can talk about what you're interested in. Or else you can text me at that number. If you prefer a more traditional contact method, like email, you can contact me at Gary Gomes, G, the letter G, at gmail.com. So just to give you, this is a little bit later than I normally put this out, these broadcasts out. I apologize if people have been waiting over the weekend to see what I have to say about the forthcoming eclipse. It's coming tomorrow. It's just been astrologers are no less affected by eclipses than regular people are. And I'm a regular person, I'm an astrologer, but I'm a regular person. And so yeah, my life's been kind of busy lately, and we'll leave it at that. Nothing bad, just busy. So I'm going to go straight for the chart, because I have kind of a limited time, kind of squeezing this in between other commitments. And let's see which chart will give us the best results. If not, I can always change the chart. All right, so this is what I did not want to do. I'm sorry. All right, so I didn't want that chart up. My apologies. Let's see now. This is the chart I wanted to show you. My apologies to folks. Hopefully nobody saw it, any information. And usually charts don't go up right away. So that's one of the blessings of going to share the chart again. All right, I'm going to do that for a third time because I don't quite trust Zoom to show the charts in their full splendor. Also, let me know if you like the chart background. I can shift it around pretty easily. So the first thing we have, so let's look at the chart. Oh, by the way, if you like what I'm doing, if you like the page, if you like the YouTube videos, please let me know. Several of you have made some recommendations for improvements. I can go to a live feed at times. I'm planning on doing that relatively soon, where you can ask questions, and I'll announce that well in advance. I'm also planning to do some more co-presentations, as I said before. Some astrologers in India, some astrologers in the United States, some astrologers, I think in Europe as well, I'm going to try for. So it'll be a really, and also South America. So it'll be a really interesting cross section of the world we'll be talking with, and we can do that on Zoom, and that's great. So let's see. Again, I normally do these at a certain time of the day. Um, I'm not quite sure why I picked 10 o'clock in the morning to do these around 10 o'clock in the morning. But recently, that always gives me a Scorpio rising when I'm looking at things, which seems appropriate because Scorpio is a hidden sign. We're looking for things which are kind of in the background, things that normally folks won't pay attention to. So just a general reading of the chart, then I'll go into your charts, your sun, moon, rising sign, and then I'll go into what's happening around the world. And I use a method called Astro cartography, which fascinated me before I had it available on a computer program. Luckily, this particular software has that option. And so let's talk more action, Gary. Okay. So, but the astrocartography allows you to localize things and where things are happening. So we have a Scorpio rising, and this is interesting because the general chart indicates there are a lot of secrets and a lot of fibbing. I won't call them outright lies, fibbing, clever use of language going on this week. So Mars is aspecting Mercury. It kind of fits since this is an election season, but it'll be more pronounced this particular election season. And that's caused by the Mars-Mercury aspect. Mars aspects Mercury in this chart, also aspects the moon, so it'll give us a little bit more energy over the past couple of days. And tomorrow during the week, I'm going to give you not the progression, but the movement of the moon through the signs. So today it'll be kind of like the far end of like an energy push. This started around Friday. Tomorrow will be a little bit more. It'll be a new moon. That's when the eclipse occurs, and that'll take a little bit of energy out of us. And it's going to be important for people going for medical procedures and things like that, because there'll be some things which will show up, which will be either misdiagnoses or what I would call false alarms because of K2 being in this particular sign. So over the next couple of days, there'll probably be a little bit of, I don't want to say depression exactly, but a little bit of a feeling of being a little bit forlorn or a little bit abandoned. One of the things that has changed since last week is Saturn has gone direct. And when Saturn goes direct, a lot of things that have been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, they'll start to come together. So people will slowly move to take action. People will slowly start to move to change things. And Saturn's aspecting Jupiter still, but this Saturn aspect will be more direct. It'll be less confusing than the Saturn retrograde has been, because the Saturn retrograde, usually what happens when Saturn goes retrograde is we have to do things like 2 and 3 times. It becomes very difficult to get things finally done. And so that Saturn retrograde, when it ends, it will reveal all kinds of problems that have arisen, especially in structural matters or in economic matters. And it will also kind of push people to go forward and to move and to make resolutions and to do things. So that's positive. The negative part of this is Saturn makes us work extremely hard. So it's not so a lot of tasks you've been putting off for a while, a lot of things you say, I don't have to worry about this particular security item, or I don't have to worry about this particular matter in my life. It'll become very strong. I don't normally use the outer planets. It's really not I consider them kind of redundant in Indian astrology, because if I'm looking at Saturn over here, Saturn is aspecting Venus and the sun. So it's sort of like gives the same kind of phenomenon. So let's say if people are upset with the government and they want to change the government, this is when they'll do it. Saturn aspecting the sun. The sun is weak in Libra. So that's why I'm saying the energy level is going to be either a little bit frenetic or a little bit chaotic, or it'll slow down a little bit. You'll have to watch out over the next, between roughly Tuesday through Thursday, for accidents, for spacey behavior, what I like to call spacey behavior. You can tell I grew up in the 60s and 70s, but basically people seeming to be disconnected from reality, and accidents. Okay, so just be a little bit careful where you step and where you put things. And also people will misplace things a little bit more over the next couple of days. Saturn aspecting Jupiter, a lot of people won't, they'll defend indefensible positions, let's put it that way. It'll be it won't be as easy to cast aspersions on either side if you're in a conflict, because people will require proof. Okay, the judgment about those things is still going to be, I don't know, I'm still kind of making up my mind, and that judgment really won't come until around mid-November. So that's why you're seeing a lot of activity happening right now. There's almost like a desperate push to get and again, keep in mind, we're in an election cycle in the United States. England just had its shortest serving prime minister in history. Liz Truss resigned after, I think it was 6 weeks in office, excuse me. And I think one of the things is you're going to see, just in general, a lot of people in power positions just step down or decide to say, you know what, I give up, unless they show some kind of flexibility or some kind of willingness to change. That's, or, Bauer, or they'll back off a little bit in order to keep diplomatic relations together, or for their future. So, but a lot of people, I think, are going to make the mistake of quitting in anger, especially over the past 3 to 4 days, and just saying, I give up, I can't do this, I want to do other things in my life. And that's a perfectly reasonable reaction during these kinds of transits as well. Eclipses, Jupiter retrogrades are retrogrades in general, but eclipses, but retrogrades that happen around the same time as eclipses are kind of important, because they'll have the effect of opening up doorways where you can reconsider options or reconsider pathways in your life. So I think one of the things that'll come out of this, and Mars will turn retrograde pretty soon as well. So certain actions you've taken, maybe you've been looking to change a house or change a car or something like that, or even change your fighting strategy. You'll stop and think about that for about 3 months. Okay, so a lot of these things, now again, people have to make decisions during these particular transits. It's not like we can't do things, but it's usually better to leave major decisions until after an eclipse period has ended. And this period will start tomorrow. You start to feel the energy of eclipses a little bit before the eclipse actually happens, because there'll be a certain amount of uncertainty. And after, so it'll be kind of this panic mode up until around November 8th, which actually is the day of the election. And people will feel a very strong push to make changes in their life, make changes in leadership, make changes in relationships. You know, as I point to Libra in this chart, this is Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and our old friend Pisces in the chart. And I think one of the things you'll start to see over the next few months is people will start to change strategies a lot. But you really won't see them start to take concrete or final action until around late January when Saturn changes signs. So essentially what happened was Saturn was in the sign for like a little while, maybe about a month. It was in Aquarius for about a month. And it's technically a more progressive sign than Capricorn is. Capricorn likes to hang on to old things and old structures, and Aquarius likes to introduce new things or introduce new technologies. And you'll start to see people say, why not build something new over the next couple of years? But that will start after January. And the Mars retrograde won't help anything get resolved. So let's see now. So Mars retrograde happened roughly. Mars is starting to station now. That means it's very powerful in the sky, so our energy levels are up. But also it's aspecting Saturn, so we'll want things just perfect, just right. So keep that in mind when you're dealing with people. Just be a little bit tolerant of people who don't get things exactly right, because you'll feel a lot of pressure yourself to move in that particular direction. Okay. And nothing's ever completely perfect. I'm not asking you to be sloppy, but you know, cut a little slack, because people will be trying their best to get everything exactly right, and it'll be very difficult to do, especially with the Jupiter retrograde, because we won't know what's exactly right. Okay, so, and Venus is with K2, so the two teaching planets are kind of screwed up, for lack of a better term. Venus was in Virgo up until like around 7 or 8 days ago. I in particular really felt that energy, and you know, because I was teaching during that time period, and it was one of the most chaotic teaching experiences I ever had. So I think not blaming the stars, you know, essentially you have to account for these things, but I was just too overwhelmed with other things. So, but um, I think one of the things is so be prepared to accept some criticism if you've been doing something wrong, or if you seem to have been a little bit misguided. It's just part of growth. So let's get back to the chart. Sun and Venus are like within 1 degree of each other. That's not technically planetary war. Planetary war is between planets. So the sun is a luminary, moon is a luminary moon, and Mercury could almost be considered to be in planetary war right now. That's causing a lot of confusion for people. But again, they're not in planetary war, but they're very close to each other. So Moon and Mercury being this close indicate a lot of confused thinking, especially this morning and yesterday. The other thing to keep in mind is the Sun-Venus combination. Again, not planetary war, because the luminaries are involved. That is, the sun and the moon are called luminaries. They're not planets, technically, in Vedic astrology. And they're exempt from planetary war. But Venus is in combustion, the moon is, and Mercury are essentially, they're close to each other. There's no technical term for that. In Vedic astrology, it's usually considered a combination for quick thinking and quick communication. But the drawback to that is I've always seen people overwhelmed by the practical things they can do in life when this combination occurs. So just be aware of that. Just be aware that your practical mind probably won't be thinking that well really until the end of the week. Okay. And also your cognitive mind, you'll forget things, you'll forget, you'll feel a little bit down about yourself, those kinds of things. The other, I'm going to stop this here and start up again. And let's see now. Rahu can in a chart can give people feelings of delusions of grandeur or like really big egos. Rahu, especially in Aries. So let's start with the birth signs. I'm not starting with this to attack Aries. I'm just saying it. So when you see Rahu in this particular sign, and we'll talk about your individual birth charts over the next few minutes, over the next 15 minutes or so, or more. The Lord of the first house is in the third house. That means destroying desire nature for the sign. Rahu's in the first house is a strong desire for recognition and for, excuse me, and for influence, even international influence, in this particular sign. Mars being in the third will make the sign a little bit more aggressive than normal. It'll focus back toward, it'll turn its energy back towards looking at money over the next few weeks. And Mars is in a lunar mansion called Morigashira, so it'll act quickly, it'll act impulsively, it'll get into fights without really thinking. And so Aries will tend to be rather aggressive this month. The moon is in the sixth house, so this sign will be critical of family members or will have enemies among family members. But it'll be for the purpose of building a new foundation. The moon is in a nakshatra with Mercury called Chitra. This is actually considered what to be one of the most auspicious points in space because it's considered to be the mansion of the architect of the universe. Okay, so if you want to build anything, if you want to do anything physically, any kind of construction work, this is a good time to start it. Even with all the other planets being relatively difficultly placed. And also in terms of building something which is individualized or the person's ego is not involved, this Sun-Venus conjunction is actually pretty good. Venus is in its own sign, so that actually makes us feel a little more comfortable, but it's with K2, it's a little bit uncertain about the future, and it's with this debilitated sun, so a lot of people are having confidence problems right now, okay, just in general. That combination is also aspected by Saturn, so relationship partners, people who are Aries, rising moon or sun will tend to have confidence problems right now. Eighth house may be overcompensating too. A lot of people with Sun and Libra will tend to be overcompensating, which we'll get to in a second. Eighth house, the Lord of the eighth house is Mars in the third house, strong desire to have influence and power. And career life actually looks pretty good. Saturn will give good career life. And it'll aspect Jupiter, so it'll pull back the gains from that, but you'll start to experience the gains from career, I would say, starting next January or definitely in next April. For Taurus, Taurus has Mars in the second house, so again, Mars will make Taurus seem pretty angry. It'll be kind of aggressive, kind of warlike. Good for making money though. And the fourth house Lord of Taurus is the Sun, is placed in the sixth house. So there'll be a lot of focus on enemies, especially female enemies. The fifth house has Mercury and exalted Mercury, and the sign, or Mercury's in its exalted sign, is past the highest point of exaltation about 2 weeks ago. Um, but but basically, this combination is pretty good for thinking of new solutions, thinking of new ideas. But again, there'll be a tendency to try to do too much at once. That's the only drawback with this combination. And there'll be a lot of focus on kids in the chart as well. So kids will seem angry or a little bit disappointed. Venus is in the sixth house. We've already spoken about that combination. So this sign should look out for health issues or for problems with diet. Seventh house lord is Mars. This will give a greedy or ambitious spouse. Ninth house lord is Saturn, rules the 10th house, and goes the 11th house. So good for career gains for this sign. For Gemini, Gemini has Mars in the first house. It'll be prone to being taken advantage of in relationships. That'll probably last for about another month and a half, for about another 3 months or so. But this combination, this little guy down here I didn't speak about in the last sign is called the Yogi point. And if the Yogi point is in the second house, it's very good for money. So any planets, now Saturn's aspect in this chart, will make the acquisition of money a little bit slower than normal. But the overall combination in this chart gives some problems with family members, some problems with children. Overall, though, you're relatively able to handle it. And the sixth lord being in the first house, this sign is very committed to work and towards building a future for him or herself. Mars aspects the seventh. This is where I said there's some tendency towards victimization in relationships. Saturn is, and when I say victimization, I have to be careful because that sounds like really, really cruel, but it goes all the way on the spectrum, and it depends on the chart, from a person being in physical danger to a person just being picked on. So I think, so I think that's one of those things you should take with a grain of salt. It's going to depend on the individual's chart. Not all sun, moon, or Gemini risings will be like that. For Saturn, some may just have increased or enhanced energy. Saturn's in the eighth house. There'll be a lot of focus on trying to develop steady streams of income. Ninth house lord is in the eighth house again. The person will gain from a teacher or advisors who are very heavily involved in stocks or investments. 10th house has Jupiter in it. This sign will be recognized for its counseling ability. Rahu's in the 11th house. They'll want more money. For Cancer, Cancer has Mars in the 12th house. So the sign, again, is a little bit problematic for relationship life. It'll continue to be problematic for relationship life really through next probably next April or May. But also it'll have a lot of career success, a lot of career focus, much more so than normal. So people with this combination will tend to attract older or mature partners because of Saturn in the 7th house. And also because of these planets. Now here you have the Mercury Moon conjunction. It'll tend to be very smart, very solution oriented. Fourth house, family will seem to be a little bit detached or a little bit angry or upset. Fifth house, children will tend to be upset or irritable. Saturn is in the 7th house, so relationship life will be stable, although, like I said, a little bit prone to criticism. And finally, Jupiter's in the ninth house, very good for getting knowledge from people of all kinds, good career guidance, period for you, for cancers. And Rahu in the 11th, famous friendships or people who have high level positions will be your friends or your associates. Now for Leo, we have no planets in the seventh. The seventh lord is in the sixth. So that means relationships will be a little bit troubled. Jupiter's in the eighth, a lot of acquisition of new knowledge and also unexpected financial gains. Second house has Mercury and Moon in it, which is good for money. It's a good monetary combination, so it gives money from people. It'll give debts, but it'll also give money for people from overseas. And Saturn is in, I'm sorry, and K2, Venus, and Sun are in the third house, which makes this sign rather powerful. But again, confidence will be a little bit lacking for this sign, which is usually pretty confident. For the rest of the chart, Saturn sits in the sixth house, so this chart should be careful about overexerting yourself. Jupiter's in the eighth house, good for money from speculations. Rahu's in the ninth, good for financial gains, as the ninth lord goes to the 11th house of finances. For Virgo, Virgo has Mercury and Moon conjunction in it, so this will give financial gains to the sign. It'll also give good career life, a lot of aggressive energy in career. K2 is in the second house, though, along with Venus and Sun. So a lot of times people will find miscommunication with the sign or even some bad luck in teaching or advising people. So this sign has to be careful to double check both its curriculum and also double check if the advice it gives out. So don't rashly go up to a person and say, hey, I know this, I know you should listen to me about this. Just try to state it as clearly as possible. Don't embellish. And you're going to be asked to repeat things or explain things a lot. Don't get impatient with that. And that's mainly because K2 sort of puts a film over us when we're trying to communicate, and that's what's happening right here. For fifth house of children looks okay. Children will be fine if a little bit slow moving. Relationship opportunities very strong. People from your past will start showing up a lot. And Rahu's in the eighth house. Again, a strong interest and or a desire to get involved with occult or metaphysical subjects. Not really the star of our chart, but Venus, but Libra is really important right now because the eclipse is occurring in Libra. And the sun, which is a star, is actually in Libra right now. So this is roughly October 15th to November 15th, and we're using sun signs. A lot of people who have Scorpio rising or Scorpio moons in Western astrology have Libra moons. So this year will seem like it'll be very difficult for you to get a foothold in career. It'll be very difficult for you to feel confidence from gains, although you will be getting a lot of gains between now and October 15th. It's just because of the mechanics of the chart. The 11th house, Lord of Gains, is in your first house, which is considered to be a yoga for a combination for prosperity, and also with the Lord of the first house. So that's good. The gains will come through unexpected sources. So that's interesting, at least to me, in terms of the chart. The Lord of the second house and the ninth house, this is also considered to be a combination for money. So there can be some money for teaching, but only for individuals. Saturn is in the fourth house, so a lot of delays that have been encountered in terms of housing, cars, things like that, those will be repairs to cars and things like that. Those will be taken care of. Fifth house lord is Saturn. Lord of the fifth house is good for education, intelligence, so people will have good command of both with this sign placement. And let's see now. And let me see now. Jupiter's in the sixth house in this chart, so that means you have to watch out for teachers or criticisms from teachers. Rahu's in the seventh house, so there'll be some dissatisfaction or unhappiness with relationship partners. It's a little bit easier to get into a fight with this combination, but basically not a bad chart. Career life will seem, like I said, will seem to be a little bit stymied over the next week or so, just because of where the moon is moving in this chart. But this chart, this sign tends to give a more public life than a lot of Librans are willing to let out or expose. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about what people think about you. This sign worries far too much about what people think about it. And just do what makes you happy. Realizing that you may change your mind about what makes you happy around April or so. For Scorpio, Scorpio has the lead planet in the eighth house, so there's a lot of eighth house activity in this chart. And usually what that means is there's a lot of connection with death or death-like states, which can mean funerals or legacies or things like that. And essentially Saturn's in the third house. This planet, this sign doesn't really fear anything. It'll work its way through any problems. Jupiter's in the fifth. Children may be a little bit unhappy, but not disastrously so. Rahu's in the sixth. Again, some problems for leadership for this sign. Mars is in the eighth house. We already covered that. And Mercury and Moon are in the 11th, giving, again, another good combination for financial prosperity. So I think this sign will probably do pretty well this month. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius's first house lord is placed in the fourth house, so there'll be a continued focus on education. Not much financial growth though, and Mars is in the seventh house, so again, fights with relationship partners or arguments with relationship partners. That'll be true of Capricorns when we get to that sign too. And let's see now. Jupiter in the fourth, though. This combination, Jupiter-Mercury combination, this sign is going to be very, very smart this month, right? And for the next few months. So I think this is actually a positive thing for this sign. A lot of, like I said, a lot of investigations to things behind the scenes. So no matter what your orientation is, whether you're just a regular consumer or you're heavily involved in politics or research or things like that, anybody involved in research with the sun is going to be like spending hours away in a closet or not in a closet, in a looking up things. They might even be looking up things on their phone, you know. That's not an advertisement. You didn't see what brand that was. And I think one of the things to keep in mind is, though, is again, there's a certain impulsiveness regarding education for this sign. So don't really jump into new educational opportunities until after mid-November. If then, I'd probably wait until next spring. For Capricorn, Capricorn has Saturn in the first house. That's a very good combination for growth. For financial growth, Jupiter's in the third. There'll be less of a temptation to make waves. Mars is in the sixth. Very competitive sign again. Easily defeats its enemies. And Moon is in the ninth. And Sun and Venus and Ketu are in the 10th. So that actually gives good financial growth to this particular sign and good opportunities coming from travel. For Aquarius, we have some problems with kids again. Mars is in the fifth house, and Jupiter's in the second, so good for financial gains, but the money will also be spent pretty quickly. And Mercury and Moon are in the eighth house. So I think one of the things I can see from this particular chart is there's been some kind of investment in property or some interest in investing in property. That's true of Leo as well. And also from the chart, Venus is very well placed with Ketu in that particular house, along with the sun. This creates a kind of a special combination in a Vedic chart, which is really good for financial gains, and good for success and status. Excuse me, not status. A little tired today, as it probably shows. The other thing is, with Jupiter in the second house, again, there'll be financial growth. The Saturn aspect kind of knocks that down a little bit. We've already spoken about that. But not a bad month. You'll be attracted to people who don't have a lot of, who are kind of pretty, but have like some psychological issues, or kind of attractive, but have some psychological issues. So you can wait to get involved relationship wise until after the middle of the month. It's probably a smarter idea. Finally, Pisces. Jupiter's in Pisces. It's what's called a Hamsa yoga, or a swan or a duck yoga. So that's and basically it's considered one of the better out of personality goes. And Mars is in the fourth house again. Some relationship issues show up from this combination. Venus is in the eighth. There may be some hidden or unknown aspects to relationship life that you're getting a little bit concerned about. The eclipse will reveal those. The eclipse, especially between September 28th and September 23rd and October 28th and November 8th. No, between, I'm getting lost here. October 25th and November 8th. Don't make any new decisions. Don't take on any new partnerships. I'll admit fully, I got a little confused then. And let's see now. Saturn's in the 11th house, good for financial gains, good for intellectual growth, good for discipline. The chart is not a bad chart at all. The Jupiter rising sign. A little bit greedy for money, a little bit ambitious, but that's not really the worst thing you can do. It's only really if you let it supplant your spirituality that you get into trouble. And this sign usually won't do it. The only thing I've noticed with Jupiter and Pisces is just because of the nature of Jupiter and the nature of Pisces, there tends to be a little bit more drinking than normal. People tend to be a little bit more, oh gosh, what's the word? Accepting of it. Okay. So, or Jupiter used to be a little bit more accepting of alternative viewpoints because Saturn's aspecting you right now. It really can't see other sides of the story. So it's essentially a pretty dogmatic place. All right, so that's it through the signs. Now I'm going to look close this share, sell this share, and we're going to see where things are happening around the world. Okay. All right. mapping program. All right. Sometimes it takes a little time to get this just right. Excuse me. All right, so that's better than I could have hoped for. Okay, so I hope everyone can see this. We have Jupiter-Mars line over the Aleutians and Hawaii. Again, I'm a little bit worried about Hawaii, not because the cyclones and natural disasters. I've been saying that for a while. I haven't really checked up on what's been happening in Hawaii, but a little bit more rain, definitely a little bit more rainfall than normal. And the Aleutians have that same potential for violence and for and also Central Alaska does. And if we look at the West Coast, there's a Moon Mercury conjunction up near Washington State, Oregon State, and that's clipping into it's between the Sun and Venus, and so essentially California, Utah, Montana, and Washington State are sort of like slammed between those lines. So I think that part of the country, going all the way up to Idaho and Montana, should be experiencing some threats to government, some not really revolutions per se, but some interest in shifting power or changing representation. And we've already seen that happen in Wyoming with Liz Cheney losing her bid for reelection. So this isn't. I'm not taking political sides, but again, there's this really massive. The eclipses could shadow it a little bit. The eclipses could take away that potential, especially the second eclipse. But I think you're going to see more complaints about election fraud and fairness of elections after November 8th. Even if people win, it'll be an ongoing struggle for about the next 2 years, I'm afraid. But it'll be particularly intense this fall and into January, late January. The other thing we want to look at is there's a Rahu line passing through what looks like Texas and a Saturn line running through Texas. So this looks like the economy is going to be hurt a little bit in Texas and the Midwest up to Oklahoma. And I think what this means is some parallels, some problems with the fuel industry and also with immigration. Just because of what Rahu tends to represent in the chart. Rahu would represent people who aren't born and brought up in the country to which they choose to migrate. Okay, for yeah, so watch out for any signs that people are going to revolt. Oh, let's see now. That's fascinating. There are no lines near Washington, D.C. The only line that's even close to it is a Jupiter line, and that's kind of distant. It affects New England a little bit more, and there are some political contests and also some some policy issues in states around New England, which are surprising for some people. And I just speak to that because I live in Massachusetts myself. Puerto Rico is still suffering from damage down here because of this Mars line. And let me see now. The Mars line goes through the center of Brazil, through the western part of Brazil, all the way through Guyana. So it looks okay, right? All right, and let's see now. Some potential for violence or earthquakes in Peru, northern South America, uh, around Colombia, around Venezuela, and some potential for violence actually in that part of the world as well, and some potential for violence in Brazil down through I believe it's Paraguay and down through Argentina. If we're looking at yeah, so there'll definitely be charges of election fraud in Brazil. That's almost a given. It's because of the Moon Mercury and Sun Venus lines happening there. Um, this combination doesn't favor the incumbent, but again, he'll be difficult to unseat. And it might end up in a runoff and or another runoff or another question ballot, and you may see the current prime minister keep his position, but that's something I'm not gonna speculate more on. There's also this is affecting the Brazilian economy somewhat. There's a Rahu line running through Iceland, some scandal in government. Looks like it's coming. There's also a touch in Northern Europe and Sweden and Norway. And there's a Saturn line running right through Germany all the way. So you see right here. Germany, Finland, and see now near where the Ukraine war is. And at least in terms of the chart, there's a Saturn line going through southwest, the southwest horn, not the horn, but the southwest outcropping of Africa. I can't think of the right term for that. And going all the way up through Libya and into Switzerland. So the economy is going to go down. I hesitate to talk about out and out crashes of the economy because that tends to be um, a little bit inconsistent around the world. But I think within the next 2 weeks or a month or so, you're going to see a massive market correction. Yes, the south of France. The only area that's not being hit is Spain, Portugal, and Brazil, which is interesting. I'm sorry, Portugal, Spain, and England and Ireland. They're having their own economic problems because nobody's shut off from the rest of the world economy now. But I think you'll see some stock market shocks in those countries, like really really big stock market shocks. Um, for There's a Mars line going through Eastern Europe. Some possibly the world will expand, although I don't think that's probably going to happen. We're talking about the war in the Ukraine. There's a Jupiter line right after it, which actually Turks personally tucks nicely into what I was saying earlier. There's a Jupiter line running through Turkey and Eastern Europe, and I think this will actually be a good time for those countries economically. A lot of opportunities, but very slow and not really that intuitively observant, not that intuitively correct to the casual observer, as one of my professors used to say. The other parts I want to cover are Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is going to have some kind of switch or some kind of not really a change in governments, but some problems with this government. And India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan are going to be in financial trouble, I think, over the next month or so. And finally, we'll see some kind of fighting break out um, in China, particularly Western China, and close to the Vietnamese border. As a matter of fact, Vietnam looks like it's in a little bit of trouble. So does Borneo, and so does Australia, but not as bad as China. And finally, Jupiter's passing over Eastern China, so that part of the country should be recovering. Moon and Mercury are over Japan right now, so that country should be doing better financially. Sun-Venus conjunction is over the island of Guinea and Australia. So Australia looks like it's actually a variety of economies, but I think pretty much Australia is not in bad shape. It'll get shook like everything else is by inflation. That Saturn aspect in Jupiter tends to drive it up. And this will be a phenomenon that will recede, come back, over the next couple of years. And finally, Rahu's passing close. It's over Micronesia, but close to New Zealand. So again, some minor panic out in New Zealand. So that's about it for this week. Again, look for changes in political leadership over the next couple of weeks. We're definitely going to be looking at some scandals about whether or not elections were stolen because of the Mars retrograde. But we'll make it through that. Okay. So in the meanwhile, and you're going to see property prices go way down as well, by the way, during the retrograde Mars. So that's it for me for this week. Thank you very much for watching. I love each and every one of you, although I realize that's physically impossible to do. But I love you from here. Okay. So thanks for watching again. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And I'll see you next week. Thanks a lot, folks. Thanks for watching. Namaste. Stay tuned for new developments. New products too. Okay. Bye, everyone.